Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about the Hypernet, and the Hypernet is fantastic for making ISK. Straightforward, it's easy, no skills required, and I'm going to show you how. So I haven't done any Hypernets for several months, and it does clear off the existing older ones. So we can see here the last time I started was on the 20th of the 12th, and we can see in that time I have done a good number of Hypernets since then. So with the Hypernets that I have there, I've made 2.1 billion ISK, and potentially on the next one it will be 2.8 billion ISK, and that is an equivalent to about just over 100 million ISK a day that I'm making from the Hypernet. And this takes me all of 10 minutes a day at the very most. So it's quick login, get my ships sorted out, put them on the Hypernet and get going. So it doesn't take a great deal of time, and pretty much I do this at the moment before I do anything else, and that is just to get them up there and out. So I imagine there's a few people scratching their heads right now, because obviously I gave the figure of 2.1 to 2.8, and that is at the very moment I have made 2.1 billion ISK. But when I put the next ship up, which will probably be a Kronos, I imagine, on average I should expect to win that one, which will take again my winnings back up to 2.8 billion ISK. So that's why the discrepancy there. It's basically just that I haven't won the next one yet. And again, I might not win the next one, but statistics generally play out on the Hypernet. I'm buying half of my nodes, which means I have a 50-50 chance. And again, let's get into that with a bit more detail. So as mentioned, I do buy half of my nodes, and I've done this with every single Hypernet that I've done since starting. And you can see here there's not a single one that has currently failed, which is pretty nice, to be perfectly honest. I thought I'd have a few failures, but if you don't buy all of half your nodes, then the chances of them completing are a lot less likely. So I do like to buy half my nodes, and there will be people looking at this going, oh, it's a scam, oh, you shouldn't do this, and it's not fair. And well, again, you can look at it however you want, but all in all, it doesn't change the end result. Anybody that is buying the nodes knows that I've bought half of them, and it's up to them whether they participate or not. In my general belief that a scam is something where you enter into something expecting one thing and getting something else, whereas obviously this is 100% transparent. You know how much the nodes are costing, you know how many are left, and you can see I've bought them. So from where I sit, I don't consider it a scam, and if you want to participate, great, and if you don't, find one that doesn't have half the nodes bought up. And also the irony is I'd much rather not buy my nodes, because it makes working out much easier, and it generally means I make more profit. Buying half the nodes actually means I make less ISK. So if I could do it without buying half the nodes, it would be great, but as I said, it's very rare, or not, that I won't get 100% sale without buying half my nodes. So that is the reason I end up buying half of them, because it's more of a guaranteed sale, even though I make less ISK. So I imagine the first question is going to be, well, which ships should I do? And again, that generally depends on your bank balance. Now, I do have a little set kind of rule or way that I work, and I'll go through that now. So when you put a ship into the Hypernet, it tells you how many are currently for sale, maximum price, minimum price, and average price. Now, depending on obviously what ship it is, and how many are currently on the Hypernet will depend whether I decide to put any on. And that is 23 for a ship that people are going to be paying a decent amount of ISK for per node and gambling on. I find 23 might be a bit high for what I'm looking for, but it's not massively out of range. Now, the Kronos has 14, which is I'm much happier at. But if we look at the Kiki, for instance, there are 56 of these currently for sale, and the point is potentially there's going to be people with lower amounts there than me, and whether I want to be competing, because obviously the more people selling, the less chance I have of completing my Hypernet. And the problem with not completing your Hypernet is you will pay the node tax on this, and again I'll go into that in a minute after this little breakdown. So again, we've got the Rattlesnake here, which only has 5, so that's not a bad one to be going with, because there's not many people selling. So if anyone is looking on the Hypernet for a Rattlesnake, the chances are I've got 1 in 5 chance of being one of the people they choose, assuming we're all roughly at the same price. 7 for the Macarial, pretty decent. Praxis, 9. would probably go with that. Let's have a look at the VEDMAC. 12, yeah, perfectly fine. Marshall, 6. Now again, for a Marshall, for the sheer amount you're paying, a billion ISK, so obviously some people will take the chance. Not sure I'd go with 6, it's quite high in my personal opinion. 9 for the Drekivac, yeah, I'd probably go with that. Falcon, only one other person selling one. Pacifier, 1. And so on and so on. So the general rule there is the higher it is, the less chance you've probably got of completing a sale. So you don't want to be, again, so say, I would stay well away from the Kikimuras unless you are able to sell them a lot cheaper. But again, the problem is with selling it cheaper, you have to acquire it cheaper. And this is where it comes to buying some of the ships. Now, you can just buy them straight from the sell order. You won't make anywhere near as much ISK. Obviously, you want to be buying it from buy orders if at all possible, depending on your skills. Obviously, the discrepancy there is about 4 million ISK, 5 million give or take. And when doing it through the Hypernet, you don't have to worry about market PVP, so you're not having to constantly amend your order to be the highest. You kind of put it on there, fire and forget, and wait for it to complete. Now, the usual case, and again, it doesn't always, it's not 100% fast stead rule here, that the more expensive the ship, the higher the margin is possibly going to be. And that is just because there's a higher margin, or and you can, again, the difference in the buy and the sell is pretty much 100 million ISK there. But bearing in mind, you do pay more tax and more cores, and I think we'll get into that bit a bit more now. So in prospective people looking to participate in the Hypernet, we have 3 colours. We have green, we have neutral, and we have red. And basically, pretty much always you want yours to be shown in green, because that means it's a competitive cost. If it's neutral, it kind of means it's in the middle, and if it's red, it is classed as high, and you are less likely to get buyers for that. Now, I can't find any red ones. How this overall cost is calculated, I'm not 100% sure, to be perfectly honest with you, but you want it showing in green if you want it to sell, unless it's a special item. Now, I'm going to showcase the Kronos here just because we have it to hand and it makes life a little easier. So in order to make it show green, you don't want to be putting it in at the current price, you want it slightly less. So I'm going to take pretty much 10 million ISK off that, and there's nothing here that's going to show you that it's showing green, but you just have to kind of go with it and, as I say, drop the price. And I like to take 1 million or 2 off, depending on obviously how much the ship costs and what type of ship it is, just to make sure that it is selling and it's not showing in red. So now we have this ship, we need to buy cores for it. Now these have gone up slightly since I've been doing it. You can get these cheaper by trading in Plex usually, but regardless, for this video we are where we are. And we've got total price here. We do have to pay the tax, which is 105 million ISK, and we do have to pay for the core price. 380 cores is just over 380 even. So it's 117 million ISK for the cores and 105 million ISK for the Hypernet relay. Now, when the cores were about 300k each, this price was pretty much level with each other, but it's just slightly out of kilter now. However, to make life a little bit easier, I will take the value of the 105 million ISK and I will times it by 4. And the reason I'm doing this, and this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting, is because of it, I am having to run this twice, and that is due to statistics and probabilities, that I have a 50-50 chance of winning the Kronos back. So sometimes I will need to buy if this is my very first Hypernet, there's a possibility I will lose this ship. There's a 50% chance I'll lose it, and there's a 50% chance I'll win it. However, I have 2 options. I can basically take the cost of the ship and half it for each time I run it, because statistically 50-50, if I run it twice, on average I will win once, lose once, and basically one ship from my inventory will disappear, taking the full cost of the ship. But I find it easier just to do it this way. So I've got to run it twice. So the Hypernet cost is 105, the core cost is just over, so we'll say, what, 170, we'll round it to 120 to make life easy, because we've got to times it now. So 120 times 4 is 480 million ISK in fees that it's going to cost me to place this on the Hypernet twice. And that is pretty much it. So what I will do now, I will create, confirm, make sure everything is right before confirming. 3 days. I only want 8 of the people bidding, because for whatever reason 8 seems to do better. It's taking forever. Now what I'll do, I'll buy half of them at 1.54 billion ISK, 05 billion, whatever. And there we go, that is up and running. So fingers crossed that will sell. I have no reason to believe that it won't, and that's a half decent return. So here's the spreadsheet, as every EVE industrialist should have. And again, it's incredibly handy for doing the Hypernet, because it's very easy to kind of not realise where you're making ISK, where you're losing ISK, and whether it's worth it or not. You know, you can lose a handful of ships in a row and it can be a bit disheartening, and you're like, oh, am I making any ISK, am I not? So I like to have my spreadsheet here, and I've done both scenarios here. So we've got one where we lose and one where we win. So the cost of the tickets is 263 million ISK times 4, because again I only get the 4 tickets, because obviously I've bought the other 4, which has cost me. I'll get that money back obviously, but it means I'm only getting half the value from the tickets, because half of them I own. So we will get just over 1 billion ISK back. The ship cost us 1.475 billion ISK, and we've got taxes here. Now I've done this times 2. Now I could do with putting the tax up slightly more because costs have gone up. So nope, too much. Let's go for 0.5. So yeah, pretty much in line. Let's do that times 2. So in the first scenario, we're going to assume we're going to lose the ship, and that is going to cost us in total, after cost for cores and tax, cost of the ship, but minus the incoming costs for the tickets, will leave us minus 642 million ISK. However, statistically, on the second go, yes, we will have to buy the ship. But again, you've then got that for another run, and so on and so on. So we've got the cost of the tickets coming in, and the total income from the tickets is 2.1 billion ISK. But obviously we've got 404, did I say 480? 440? 120, yeah, that's wrong actually, isn't it? Let's do that again. 1, 4. There we go. So there we go. We've got 480 million ISK in costs for the cores and the tax. So again, it changes slightly, but again, it's more accurate in what we've just been looking at. And so therefore, that minus that, so one loss, one win would equate to 153 million ISK we will make if that Hypernet completes. Now, we could get the ship 1 million ISK at 100 million ISK cheaper if we were to buy it off buy orders, and that would equate to a profit of 253 million ISK. Who knew? So there is good ISK to be made here relatively easily, and again we can see here I've got a list of ships here. It's not 100%, I've not been keeping up. We've got a count of 91, and win-loss I've got 83 in total, so I'm missing a few here, but you get the general gist. And this gives you an idea of the ships that I've done. So I've done Vargas, Macarials, Rattlesnakes, Golems, Balgurs, Paladins, Praxis, Enforcer, Drekovacs, Hawks, Pacifier and Falcons. So some I've done more than others, but again, so far I've got 41-1 and I've got a loss of 42. So pretty much 50-50 bang on for the amount that 83 Hypernets completed. And you can see here some are done really well, like the Macarial. I've lost, well, I haven't won a single Varga yet. I've lost 2 of them. One more Golems than I've lost just. Balgorn 1-1, didn't do it again. Macarial, so say yeah, really done well on the Macarials. Paladin, again I'm down on the Paladins. Praxis, really quite heavily down. And so on and so on. So you can see there I've done a whole range of ships. I haven't just concentrated on, I started slowly with the Hawks to try and get back into it and try and work out whether I was making ISK again. And then, pacifiers and other things, and I had some Drekivacs lying around. Praxis was handy to try and get rid of some, although that's not turned out very well in my favour. So the point is that, you can use pretty much any kind of ships. And again, 1, 2, 3, and I've got, Enforcers. How many we've got there? We've got 12 different ship types, and they've all sold. And that is how I've been making nigh on 100 million ISK per day from just the Hypernet. And again, if you extrapolate that, that's what, 3 billion ISK? 3 billion ISK a month and 36 billion ISK a year. And again, you need pretty much no skills in order to be able to do this. Yes, if you've got some trading skills, you can make extra margin, but it's not 100% required, whereas everything else in the game requires you to do something. You can buy the ships in Jitter, and you sell them in Jitter on the Hypernet. And again, you don't need standings, you don't need skills, and you can do an unlimited amount. The only thing that holds you back is the amount of ISK that you physically have in your account to hold the ships. Now, do bear in mind, every so often you will get an unlucky streak. One of my previous videos that I did on the Hypernet, I think I lost 9, I think it was rattlesnakes in a row out of 20. So you do get runs of bad luck. It is relatively rare, and again, the 50-50 pretty much always holds out, and you can see, so say, just going down here, you can, I haven't had any really bad runs, and we obviously noted in the end that it's pretty much exactly 50-50. So do bear in mind that obviously, you could do marshals exclusively, but if you lose 4 or 5 marshals in a row, it could be down 40 billion ISK, and if you can't carry on, then that's going to suck really badly. So I would suggest starting out with, having ships that you can obviously afford to lose 5, 6, 7 in a row, and pretty much go from there. And then slowly build up the amount of ISK that you've got and the amount of ISK that you can reinvest, and slowly buy bigger and bigger ships and go from there. And, you can go for jump freighters and other things. I generally stay away from there because I don't think I have a big enough balance in order to be, jumping into the jump freighter market. And the amount of jump freighters that, in my opinion, sell on the Hypernet, I would assume is relatively low, because again, it's a huge amount of ISK you're investing or gambling there, and it's not, it's probably something I'll try out in the future, but at the moment I just don't have the stomach for 14-15 billion ISK losses, and I'm happy to stay in a range where I am more comfortable, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So I think we'll round up there. I think I've covered most things. I'm sure there's something I've missed. I'm sure somebody's going to call me out on something. But 100 million ISK a day. Actually, depending if I win the Kronos, it's 133 million ISK a day I'm making at the moment on this alone. And all in all, at the moment, I make about 100 billion. 100 billion? 100. I make about 1 billion ISK a day from all different activities. And I've said it in numerous videos, and this is no different. Diversify and don't just concentrate on one area of the game to make your ISK, because if that ever changes, if CCP decide that the Hypernet isn't for them and they pull it completely, again, this is where you get people that get really upset that their gameplay has changed, because they're concentrating solely on one area, and having that mindset that if it changes it's going to ruin your day isn't always great for one's general well-being, shall we say. So having a diverse way of making ISK is always great, and it means, again, so say I've not done Hypernet for probably 5 or 6 months. If you look through me channel, the last time I did a Hypernet video was pretty much the last time I did Hypernet, which I'm imagining is a good 6 months ago. So the reason I don't do it particularly often or all the time is because it gets a bit boring, to be honest. I don't get much out of it. I'm getting ISK, but again, ISK isn't the primary driver for my gameplay. A lot of the time I enjoy more of the industrial stuff, and I enjoy crunching the numbers. I enjoy sometimes moving the stuff around and then getting it back to market and selling it, where I don't get the same joy from this, although it is very good ISK and it's very little work. So who knows, I might do it a bit more, but this is why I have stops and starts in regards to the Hypernet, because again, for engaging gameplay. It's just not something I find particularly engaging. But everybody to their own, I guess. So with that, thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Bit of a long video, but quite an important one. Great for making ISK. Don't shy away from the Hypernet if you want to make ISK. And again, buy half your tickets. It's the best way forward. I guarantee it. And with that, talk to you later.